All right, today we are diving into a paper called From Generated Human Videos to Physically Plausible Robot Trajectories. And this one tackles what feels like one of the biggest hurdles in modern robotics right now. How do you take the output from these creative but, really noisy AI video models?
Those don't care about physics at all.
Exactly, and turn that into stable, real-world motion for a humanoid robot. In this case, the Unitree G1. The mission here is really zero-shot mimicry.
That's the key phrase, zero shot. The robot has to reproduce these complex human-like actions from a video plane it's never seen before. And the solution they propose is GenMimic, which is this really interesting physics-aware reinforcement learning policy.
And the big contributions here, the things that really make it work, are all about building in resilience. I mean, this is basically the first generalist framework that lets a humanoid just execute motions from models like 1, 2.1 and Cosmos Predict 2.
And they get there with two really novel techniques in their RL training. First, these weighted 3D keypoint tracking rewards, basically teaching the robot what to focus on.
And what to ignore.
And second, an auxiliary symmetry loss, which uses the basic structure of the human body to correct errors on the fly.
And to test all this, they built their own stress test, the GenMimic Bench. We're talking 428 synthetic videos with all sorts of weird, flawed actions.
Yeah.
And the result, they got coherent, physically stable, zero-shot motion on a real Unitree G1 robot, no fine-tuning. That's a huge step.
It really is. I mean, the context here is everything. We've seen these video generation models just explode in the last year or so.
Oh, absolutely.
They can synthesize really complex, totally novel human behaviors just from a text prompt. If you think of an LLM as a high-level planner, these video models are like the visual planners for robots.
The potential is just so obvious. Instead of spending months with motion capture suits for every single action,
Right.
You just tell an AI, show me a video of someone waving while stepping to the left. And the robot can learn from that. But as you said, that video is full of junk data.
Exactly. And that's the fundamental challenge. You can't just feed that video into a standard instrumentation policy.
Why not?
Because the videos have so much noise, weird distortions, and sometimes physically impossible poses. The policies we normally use are trained on super clean mocap data.
Motion capture.
Right, perfect data. So they just completely break when they see this messy synthetic stuff. You need extreme robustness for this zero-shot mimicry idea to work.
So GenMimic's whole purpose is to be that translation layer. It takes the noisy video and cleans it up enough to be a useful control target.
That's it. It's a two-stage pipeline. Stage one is what they call structured lifting. You start with the raw RGB video. Let's say it's a clip of someone doing a gesture while walking.
Right.
First step is reconstruction. They use a model like Tram to lift the pixels into a full 4D representation.
Yeah.
You get the global pose and the underlying SMPL parameters for the human in the video.
And SMPL is that parameterized model of the human body shape and pose. But that's still a human, not the Unitree G1 robot.
Correct. So the next step is retargeting. You have to map that human trajectory onto the robot's specific body, its morphology. And this process gives you two key outputs: the goal joint angles, which we can call the text goal, and crucially, the global 3D key points, text goal.
Okay, and that sets up stage 2, turning that target into actual robot movement. But you said the key points are crucial. I thought they made a kind of counterintuitive choice here.
They absolutely did. For most control problems, you'd think the most direct path is to give the policy the desired joint angles, the text bait.
Tell the robot's elbow to be at 90 degrees. Seems straightforward.
But the GenMimic policy is conditioned on the 3D key points, text goal.
So not the joint angles, but the target 3D position of, say, the hand in space.
Exactly. The hand, the head, the feet. The reason comes down to one thing: robustness to noise. That whole pipeline to get the video is already noisy. If you translate that noise directly into joint angles, the errors just compound. You get these jerky, unstable, sometimes impossible targets. But key points, the 3D positions, they're empirically just a much more stable target.
So a little bit of noise in the hand's target position is less likely to make the robot fall over than a little bit of noise in 5 different joint angles in the arm and shoulder.
You got it. It's a more forgiving representation.
Yeah.
So the policy runs this loop. It takes its own state, joint positions, velocities, and the goal 3D key points from the video.
Right.
It processes that. And then it outputs the desired joint angles, which get fed to a low-level controller to actually generate the motor torques.
In the policy itself, how is it trained? I saw PPO and Dagger mentioned.
Yeah.
Can you give us a quick refresher on what those are doing here?
Sure. It's a student-teacher framework. all done in simulation in IsaGym, which is super fast for this stuff. PPO, Proximal Policy Optimization, is just the core RL algorithm they're using. And Dagger, dataset aggregation, is a clever trick to make imitation learning better. It lets the policy ask an expert, in this case, the clean mocap data for help when it gets into a state it's never seen before. It helps it generalize.
So it's learning from this perfect clean motion data, the AMS dataset, but it has to be ready to handle the messy synthetic stuff in the real world. This is where those two novel features come in, right? The weighted rewards and the symmetry loss.
This is where it gets really smart. The first one, weighted keypoint tracking rewards. The insight here is simple. Not all tracking errors are equally important.
Right. If the robot's shoulder is a bit off, but its hand grabs the object correctly, that's a win. If its foot is off and it falls, that's a failure.
Precisely. So they built a reward system where some body parts are worth more points than others. They put high weights on the end effectors, the hands and the head, because they're usually critical for the task and for stability.
And I'm guessing they put lower weights on the parts that are likely to be noisy in the input video?
That's the hack. They intentionally downweigh the lower body key points, the hips, the feet, because that's where the generative video models often produce the most noise and the most physically implausible motion. They're telling the robot, look, prioritize keeping your hands on target and staying upright over perfectly matching this noisy leg data.
It's like building in domain knowledge about your faulty sensor.
Yeah.
That's really clever. What about the second part, the auxiliary symmetry loss?
So this one uses a really powerful inductive bias. The human body is bilaterally symmetric. Your
Sure.
left side is a mirror of your right.
Okay, makes sense.
If you can enforce that structure during training, you get this amazing built-in error correction. So let's say the generated video shows the robot's left leg doing something wobbly and unstable.
Right.
But the target for the right leg is stable and physically plausible. The policy can use the information from the good side to stabilize and inform the movement on the bad side.
It's like having a built-in mirror for a sanity check.
That's a perfect way to put it. The loss function basically encourages the policy to choose a mirrored action if it leads to a better outcome. It forces the robot to learn this fundamental structural property of its own body.
That is just so cool. It's engineering resilience right into the math. So before we get to the results, the final boss of robotics, sim to real, how they make sure this actually worked outside of the simulation.
Oh, they threw the kitchen sink at it with domain randomization. They didn't just randomize the obvious stuff like friction and mass. They randomized PD controller gains, motor strength, control delays, even hit the robot with random external forces in the simulation.
So they basically beat up the digital robot until it was tough enough for the real world.
Pretty much. That massive exposure to noise and variation is what prepares it to handle the crazy off-distribution targets it's going to get from the generated videos.
Okay, so they have the policy, now they need to test it. You mentioned they built their own benchmark, GenMimicBench.
Yeah, and this is a big contribution in its own right. It's 428 synthetic videos specifically designed to break tracking policies. It's divided into two parts.
The first one was from 1.2.1, which you said was cleaner.
Right. 217 videos. These are more structured. Simple gestures, walking with gestures, and these cool multi-step composite actions like raising your right hand and pointing, then smoothly folding your arms.
And the second set, the Cosmos Predict 2 videos. That's the chaos you mentioned.
That's the chaos. That's the in the wild test. 211 videos with cluttered scenes, weird lighting, lots of camera motion, and importantly, object interactions, opening doors, lifting dumbbells. This is where you get occlusions and drift.
And they specifically included failure modes in the data set, right? Things that are physically impossible.
Yes, that's the point. The policy has to learn to look at a target that a physics engine would just reject and say, okay, what is the closest, safest, physically possible approximation of that goal? It's not about perfect imitation. It's about stable tracking.
All right, so let's get to the results in simulation. How did GenMimic do against the other methods?
It blew them out of the water. But to really see why, you have to look at the metrics they used, especially these no termination or NT metrics.
Why did they need new metrics? Isn't success rate good enough?
Not really. Standard success rate just tells you if the robot fell over. And standard error metrics can be misleading.
How so?
Okay, imagine a non-robust policy. It tries a hard motion, fails, and falls over after 1 second. It will report a very low tracking error for that 1 second it was upright.
I see.
Now take GenMimic. It's super robust. It might stay on its feet for the whole 10 seconds, accumulating tiny errors along the way. With the standard metric, the less robust policy actually looks more accurate, which is totally wrong.
Ah, so the no termination metric calculates the error over the entire planned motion, whether the robot fell or not.
Exactly. It gives you a true apples-to-apples comparison of tracking fidelity. And with those metrics, GenMimic was clearly superior. The teacher policy got an 86.77% success rate, which is a massive leap.
And the ablation studies backed up their design choices.
Completely. They proved that using 3D keypoints was better than joint angles for noisy input. And they showed that both the weighted rewards and the symmetry loss independently gave huge boosts to robustness.
So simulation was a clear win. What about the real world? What happened when they put this on the actual Unitree G1 robot?
The deployment was a success, though they used a safety anchor for these first tests. They use a metric called visual success rate, which is basically a human judging how well the robot's motion matched the video.
And where did it do well?
It was great at all the upper body in-place actions, waving, reaching, even the complex composite motions. All of it looked coherent and stable. The robustness really shone through when the robot didn't have to move its feet.
But I have a feeling I know where this is going. What about locomotion? When had to walk and gesture at the same time?
That's the current frontier. That's where it struggled. For motions that combined complex upper body stuff with stepping or turning, the success rate dropped a lot. The policy could still track the upper body pretty well, but the lower body, it would stumble, or its foot placement would be inconsistent.
So the control policy, GenMimic, can handle the noise, but the actual targets for walking coming from the generative video, they were just too noisy or physically wrong to execute.
That's the takeaway. The controller is strong. The bottleneck has moved upstream to the visual planning stage, especially for something as delicate and dynamic as walking.
So to wrap this all up, what's the big picture here? GenMimic has successfully bridged that gap between generative AI and real-world robotics.
It really has. It's a huge step towards having general-purpose robots that you can instruct visually, but the paper is also really honest about the future work needed.
Right. First, they said we need better 4D reconstruction from the video to give the robot a cleaner target to start with.
Exactly. And second, we need more data. AMIS is great, but it's not enough. A truly general policy needs to be trained on way more diverse, chaotic, real-world motion.
And the final point was moving beyond even the 3D keypoints they relied on so heavily.
Yeah, the next big leap is probably learning some kind of latent motion representation, an embedding that can capture the essence of a motion, whether it's real or generated, simple or complex, and inherently understand what's physically plausible.
It really feels like the problem has shifted. The robotics control part is getting incredibly robust. GenMimic proved that. So it leaves us with this final thought. If we can solve the problem of generating truly physically plausible 4D human motion from just a text prompt, have we essentially solved the entire high-level planning problem for humanoids?